Wabi-sabi is the ancient Japanese philosophy of finding and recognizing beautiful imperfection. Seemingly an oxymoron to pair the pursuit of beauty, a rather cutthroat and cold-shouldered pursuit, with the rejection of beauty, the antithesis of its ideals. Now, this might seem nothing more than an endearing thought exercise at first, something nice to think about. But if you do give it more thought, you'll soon come to realize that this speaks more about the human condition and what makes us human than you might first realize. This school of thought is nigh universal in jazz and jazz culture. And traditional music, as abstract of an idea as that may be, seems to follow triads or evenly spaced notes with one step in between them. And this will typically follow a 1-4-5 progression. Now this progression, let's say it's in the key of C. C would be 1, D2, E3, F4, and G would be 5. So as an example, I will demonstrate one of those chord progressions. So C, F, G, and C. Now that's going to be the basis for any conservative kind of music views. Now, first brought about in the 1400s, that's just going to be the basis for any traditional view of music, but there are rejections to this, which jazz would be a great example. Now, jazz is typically going to follow a minor scale and going to incorporate tetrads, which are triads with one additional note at the end. And these will typically follow a 5-1 progression with the sevenths or triads being incorporated. For this example, I'm just going to do a very simple dilation from that initial progression. So I'm just going to do a 5-1. So 5, 1, 5, 1. And although this may not be your personal music taste, you can at least admit that this is somewhat in tune and can be passed as an acceptable subclass of music theory, despite rejecting its traditions. Jazz has its own order, despite being a rebellion against order, and has a methodology of its own. Perhaps no more evident of this is in improvisation, a very common practice in jazz music. Now, improvisation is just making up whatever you want within the song, but this has an order of its own. Say you have a constraint of 4 measures, 8 measures, anything like that. It has an order, it doesn't go outside of that. The entire creation of jazz was a rejection of order, actually. An embrace of wabi-sabi, aware of it or not. A great example of this would be Jack Kerouac's On the Road, which he rejections, creating further levels of distortions and dilation from jazz culture. And this implies a method of a working imperfection. Well, what is a working imperfection? Well, we all know what a non-working imperfection is. Think of beauty, a large nose, acne, anything like that. In music, this will sound like a wrong note. Let's say here. That's going to be a non-working imperfection. But working imperfections exist all around us. Again, look at beauty. Something like dimples, freckles, a strange nose can work on a person. They can become attractive. Even an all-natural beauty movement has sparked from this kind of ideology. Rejecting these standards. But what is it about these imperfections that make them so appealing to us, despite being conventionally non-attractive? Well, I believe this truth stands in what makes us human as a whole. We, as people, were mistakes, believe it or not. In that primordial soup, when we were a single cell, the only thing that made us into what we are today is a mistake in the genome. Little mutations that change gradually into what we are today. It's making mistakes like that and making them work that makes things like jazz, beauty, anything so beautiful to us. And while there is, yes, comfort in conformity, there is humanity in rejecting it, humanity and imperfection.